Thank you. New reports are now saying that a Russian-American lobbyist was at the meeting with Donald Trump Jr. and that Russian lawyer.
Our political analysts, Wendy Patrick, Laura Fink, they join us with more. Ladies, good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Shelly.
All right, that Russian-American lobbyist Raul was just mentioning, reported at that meeting, said to be now a former Soviet counterintelligence officer, also suspected of having ongoing ties to Russian intelligence. What are we learning this morning, Wendy?
Shelly, I don't know how much this changes the equation of what we already know, which is not that much. This is a meeting that is really more sensational in retrospect than it probably was at the time to Donald Trump Jr. Because remember, this whole last year has been characterized by allegations that the Trump administration is one in which all roads don't lead to Rome, they lead to Russia. And this is yet one more indication that there was this type of cooperation on the front end. But whether or not it's criminal or whether or not it just looks bad or whether it's unprofessional, whatever you want to call it, Donald Trump Jr. exhibited a certain amount of political naivete that is now really coming back harshly. And this new information perhaps makes it even worse for him than it already was. But what impact it's really going to have in the long run, given that as so far we don't have any indication that his father knew about it at the time, remains to be seen.
Laura?
Well, it's clear that what he did was probably criminal. When you stand up and you become part of a campaign, much less a presidential campaign, one of the first things that you learn is that you cannot accept contributions from foreign governments. That's 101. When I was on my first campaign in my early 20s, you learned that instantly. Now, it's clear here that he either had a profound sense of entitlement or was deliberately working with the Russians to try to cooperate with them. Now, what this means politically for Donald Trump is that he is unable to get his numbers above 40%, unable to get his legislative agenda off of the ground, and continues to raise suspicions that everything that is swirling around about him is in fact true. The evidence continues to mount. We know that Robert Mueller is looking at it. Ultimately, he will have the determination of whether to bring legal charges in this case, but I think every American knows in their gut that what he did was just wrong.
You know, and Laura brings up some interesting points I just briefly want to follow up on. Whether it's wrong and whether it's criminal are two different questions. I think everybody believes that he shouldn't have done it, despite the fact that the president says a lot of people would have done it. Maybe that's true, but should he have different? Optics and topics. It looks really bad, but what did they talk about? Remember, it's not the meeting apparently was a bust. He didn't get any useful information.
We don't know
but
that.
It's looked at the lens, right, we don't know as much as we'd like to make that determination. But from the front end, should he have taken it to begin with? If I had a dime for every case that looked really good at the beginning and ended up falling apart, I'd be able to retire. And that is one of the reasons that it really behooves all of us, both in the court of law and in the court of public opinion, to take a close, hard look at the elements of all the crimes that he potentially could have violated before we jump to conclusions. And no doubt that's what Mueller's team is doing.
What a lot of people were saying, that they wanted somebody without this political experience, and this administration obviously has that. How much longer can they continue to claim this naivete that you mentioned, Wendy, and claiming this ignorance? We're saying, well, we didn't know that that's how this works. We didn't know that that's how you're supposed to do things. When Christopher Wray is talking yesterday to the committee, he said, well, if that meeting had happened, you had to tell the FBI director right away.
That's right. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Period. Full stop.
Sure.
However, having said that, there are lots of cases in which there is an amount of discretion that is exercised in deciding whether or not a crime or even just misconduct is of the caliber that they want to follow up on. Those are judgment calls made, no doubt, by Mueller's administration, the new FBI director. He's going to have to make a lot of those. You also see a lot of that discretion being exercised politically, and that's why, even though certainly it would be no defense to criminal activity, the fact that, well, gosh, do some of these young people who are not involved in politics, did they not know any better, comes into play in that arena.
All right, ladies, we're going to give you your 30 seconds for your final thoughts, and feel free to address the president being in Paris right now as a special guest. Laura, we're going to start with you.
Well, I want to touch on the polling numbers and say that generally speaking, right now the president's around 40%. We know that Democrats need to pick up 24 seats in the House. So looking ahead to the midterm elections, we see that he has created the soil for the Democrats, in spite of the redistricting, making those districts really tightly Republican for them to pick up those seats. None of this Russia stuff helps him either on his legislative agenda, nor does it help him electorally. He needs to clean it up, but it doesn't look like he can because the shoes continue to drop.
Boom, right at the zero.
Perfect.
Wendy, you're
Perfect.
up.
I don't want to follow that. That was absolutely perfect. Or am I running? Okay. I think the visit to Paris was successful in a lot of respects. And I know everybody's talking about the handshake. They finally got a handshake right. But also remember, this is the odd couple. The French president is the youngest ever to be elected. Donald Trump, of course, is the oldest here in the U.S. But they really made a lot of headway in terms of the kinds of discussions they had, and they appeared to be investing political capital in each other, which ended up making it look like a win-win. And I know a lot of this is about perception. So I think it was successful, and ultimately, let's see if those poll numbers change. That was pretty good.
Wow.
Both of you.
Both did outstanding. Ladies, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks,
you guys.
Shelley.